Billionaire CEO planned to leave her for his ex. His wife triggered a secret plan that shook everything. 3 more months, Vivian. I promise. Once the merger closes, and I've secured the European assets, we're set. She has no idea about the offshore accounts. Adriana Cole stood frozen outside her husband's corner office, expensive wine bottles trembling in her hands as she listened to a man she'd loved for 8 years plan her destruction like it was just another business deal. The Cayman holdings are clean. Her name's nowhere near them. My lawyers say as long as I act normal, show marital harmony during the acquisition period, I can restructure everything before filing. His voice carried that warmth she hadn't heard in months. That tenderness. That intimacy. Except it wasn't meant for her. It was meant for Vivian Laurent, his college girlfriend, the woman he claimed was just a colleague when they reconnected at Davos. No, she trusts me completely. Still thinks I'm working late when I'm at your penthouse. Have you ever stood in a hallway and felt your entire world collapse while your heart kept beating like nothing had changed? Have you ever heard the person you trusted most describe you like you were an obstacle instead of a partner? Adriana had brought his favorite Thai food to celebrate their 8th anniversary, and instead, she discovered she'd been married to a stranger who'd been calculating her disposal with the same precision he used to close billion-dollar deals. But here's what Damien Cole didn't know. Here's what he couldn't have predicted. His wife wasn't the trusting fool he thought she was. And the next 3 months wouldn't go the way he planned. Not even close. Because while he'd been building offshore accounts and planning his exit strategy, Adriana's grandmother had left her something he knew nothing about. $47 million in hidden trusts. A playbook for surviving powerful men. And a network of women who've been waiting their entire lives to help someone fight back. If you ever felt underestimated, if you've ever been betrayed by someone you loved, if you've ever wondered what it takes to go from victim to victor, stay with me. Because what Adriana did next didn't just save her. It rewrote the entire game. And if this story resonates with you already, hit that like button right now. Let's get into this. The executive suite stretched before her in that expensive silence that comes with corner offices and 7-figure salaries. Minimalist furniture. Abstract art that costs more than most people's houses. And at the far end, past the glass-walled conference rooms and the reception area that looked like it belonged in an architecture magazine, she could see light spilling from Damien's office. She could hear his voice too. Low, warm, laughing. Adriana set down the bags of food on the marble reception desk and smiled to herself, assuming he was wrapping up a call with Singapore or London. The kind of late-night negotiation that came with building a capital investment firm that managed $18 billion in assets. She'd gotten used to sharing him with the world. That was part of loving an ambitious man. Part of being a supportive wife who understood that empires required sacrifice. Except then she heard him laugh again. And something about that sound made her pause. It wasn't the polite corporate chuckle he gave investors when they made mediocre jokes he had to pretend were brilliant. It wasn't the tired exhale he made when she told him about her day at the nonprofit. That half-listening sound that meant his mind was already somewhere else. This was real joy. Genuine. The kind of laugh she hadn't heard from him in months. Maybe longer. The kind that pulled at something in her chest, because she couldn't remember the last time she'd been the one to make him sound that happy. She moved toward his office, her heels silent on the plush carpet. Through the partially open door, she could see him silhouetted against the New York skyline. Phone pressed his ear, his shoulders relaxed in a way they never were anymore. Even from behind, she could read his body language, could see the ease in his posture, the intimacy. She was 5 feet from the door, reaching for the handle to surprise him with a kiss and dinner, and the silly anniversary card she bought that made a terrible pun about investment returns and romantic returns, when his words stopped her cold. Once I get half those properties in the divorce, we're set for life. Adriana's hand froze on the door handle. Her breath caught somewhere between her lungs and her throat. The shopping bags with her anniversary dinner suddenly felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds. She's so trusting she still thinks I'm working late. Thinks I'm here closing deals when I've been at your place 3 nights a week for the last 2 months. She pulled her hand back from the door like it had burned her. pressed herself against the wall next to the frame, where she could hear but couldn't be seen. Her heart was hammering so hard she was sure he'd hear it. Sure the entire 42nd floor would hear it. But she couldn't move, couldn't breathe, could only listen as her husband spoke to someone else with a tenderness that used to belong to her. No, she has no idea. I've been careful. The lawyer says as long as I act normal, show I'm committed to the marriage during the acquisition period, I can claim significant portions of her inheritance properties. She put them in her name for tax purposes after her grandmother died, but they've been improved during our marriage. That's our ticket, Vivian. That's what sets us up. Vivian. The name landed like a fist to her stomach. Vivian Laurent, the French investment banker with the perfect smile and the Sorbonne degree. The woman Damien had dated at Wharton before Adriana. The one he'd reconnected with at the World Economic Forum in Davos last year and claimed was just a professional colleague. Just someone from his past who'd become a useful contact in European markets. Adriana had met her once. At a charity gala 6 months ago, Vivian had been charming, sophisticated, had complimented Adriana's work with underprivileged youth, and said something about how lucky Damien was to have a wife who cared about making the world better instead of just making money. At the time, Adriana had been flattered, had thought, this is what evolved adults look like. No jealousy, no insecurity, just mutual respect. Now she realized that conversation had probably happened right after Vivian had left Damien's bed. I love you too. His voice dropped lower, softer, and Adriana could picture the expression on his face without seeing it. That look he used to give her. That unguarded vulnerability that made you feel like you were the only person in his universe. Just 3 more months of playing the devoted husband, and then we're free. We're finally free. 3 months. He had a timeline. This was an impulse. This was a moment of weakness or a midlife crisis or any of the things people said when marriages fell apart. This was strategy, planning, calculation. He'd been building toward this with the same methodical precision he brought to hostile takeovers and complex mergers. Adriana heard him shift, heard his chair creak. Panic flooded her system. Adriana heard him shift. If he saw her standing here, panic if her face showed even fractions. If he came out now, everything saw her standing here. He'd know she knew. If her face showed even fractions, he'd accelerate his timeline. Everything would change. Assets faster. He'd know she knew. She'd lose whatever advantage. He'd accelerate his timeline. Still gave her. Move assets. Her body moved on autopilot. She'd lose whatever advantage. She backed away from his office door. Still gave her. Moving quickly. Her body quietly toward the elevator bank. She backed away from his office door. Listened to the cables. Moving quickly and quietly toward the elevator bank. Behind her, hit the button. She could still hear Damien's voice as now muffled by distance. Behind her, still talking to Vivian about she could still hear Damien's voice. A future built on the ruins now muffled by Adriana's trust. Still talking to Vivian about their future. The elevator arrived with a soft chime. A future built on the ruins. She stepped inside as the doors closed. The elevator arrived with a soft chime. Polished steel. She stepped inside and as the doors closed. Same dark hair caught her reflection in a low polished steel. Same minimal makeup. Same dark hair pulled back. She'd worn to work that morning. Same minimal something makeup. Fundamental had same simple behind dress. Her eyes. She'd worn something had gone cold and sharp. But something fundamental had shifted behind her eyes. If she'd seen it in something had gone cold and sharp. The elevator calculating in a way that would Adriana Cole felt her she'd seen it in someone else with each floor. The elevator descended. The trusting wife. And Adriana Cole, woman who believed in partnership away with transparency and growing old together. The woman had died in a corporate transparency, while her husband planned her financial destruction. That woman had died in a corporate by the time the elevator while her husband planned her financial destruction. Someone new had taken her place. His mistress. She walked out into the elevator reached the lobby. The city alive around her with people heading home from work. She walked out into the October meeting for dinner. The ordinary alive around her with people heading home from work detonated. She found her car in the parking garage. The ordinary machinery of lives that hadn't just and stared at the concrete wall. She found her car in the parking garage. Then she pulled out her phone, sat behind the wheel, called the one person who would understand what to do with rage this cold. Then she pulled out her phone, Adriana, and called the one person who would understand what to do with rage. Nadia Kim's voice carried immediate concern. It's almost they've been best friends since college. Nadia Kim's voice carried immediate concern since the days when Adriana had been scholarships and trying to figure out how someone from a working class family navigated Adriana had been built for
scholarship
people born
student trying
into
to figure
wealth.
out how someone
Nadia
from a
had been her
working class
guide
family
then.
navigated
Her partner
a world
in
built for
survival.
people born into
And
wealth.
over the years,
Nadia had been
as
her guide
Adriana
then.
had married into
Her
money, and
partner
Nadia
in
had built a
survival.
career as an
And
investigative
over the years,
journalist.
as
Adriana
Adriana
had
had
married
married
into
into
money, and Nadia
They
had built
remain
a
each
career
other's
as an
touchstone.
investigative journalist, the person who
Specializing in
remembered who you
corporate
were
fraud. Before
they
the world
remain each
told
other's
you who to
touchstone.
be.
He's
The person
leaving
who
me.
remembered who you were
Adriana's voice came
before
out
the world
steady,
told
which
you who to
surprised her.
be.
She
She's
expected
leaving me.
tears. Adriana's
Expected
voice
her
came
voice
out
to
steady,
shake, which
but
surprised her.
instead she sounded
Expected
clinical.
tears.
Detached.
Expected her voice
has been
to
planning
shake.
it for months,
But instead,
offshore
she
accounts,
sounded clinical.
asset restructuring,
Detached.
has been
mistress
planning it
he's
for
been
months.
seeing for at least 2
offshore
months.
accounts,
Probably
asset
longer.
restructuring,
A timeline.
a mistress
A
he's been
strategy
seeing for at least 2
everything.
months,
Probably
silence
longer.
on the other end,
A timeline.
then
A
where
strategy.
are you? Parking
Everything.
garage at his office, silence on the other
I
end.
came surprising
Then,
for our anniversary.
where are you?
And
Parking
overheard him on the
garage
phone
at
with
his
her.
office with Vivian
I came
Laurent.
surprising for our
Remember her?
anniversary.
The
And
French banker
overheard him
from
on the phone with
Davos.
her.
With
That
Vivian
woman
Laurent,
who looked at you like
remember
you were
her?
a temporary
The French
inconvenience?
banker from Davos.
That's the one.
That
Apparently
woman who looked
she's
at
his
you like
future,
you were a
and
temporary
I'm just the obstacle
inconvenience
between him.
That's
and
the
life
one
he actually
Apparently
wants.
she's his future.
More silence.
And I'm just the obstacle
Adriana
between
could
him
hear Nadia
and the
moving
life
around.
he actually wants.
Could picture a friend
More
pacing her
silence.
apartment the way
Adriana
she did
could
when
hear
her mind
Nadia
was
moving
working through
around.
problem. Could
Did he
picture a
see
friend
you?
pacing her
Does he
apartment
know you
the way
heard?
she did when her mind
No.
was working through
I
problem.
left before he knew I
Did
was
he
there.
see you?
Went
Does
back
he
down
know
to
you
my
heard?
car.
He probably
No.
thinks I'm still the nonprofit.
I left before he knew I was
working
there.
late like
Went
I
back
told him
down
I
to my
would be.
car.
He probably
Good.
thinks I'm still
That's
the
good.
nonprofit.
Don't tell him.
Working late like
Not
I
yet.
told him I would be.
I wasn't planning
Good.
to.
That's
I don't know
good.
what I was planning.
Don't tell him.
actually. Not
I just
yet.
knew I needed to call
I
you
wasn't
before I did
planning
something
to.
stupid like confront
I don't
him
know what I was
or
planning
break down,
actually.
or give
I
him
just
any
knew I needed to
indication
call
that I
you
know.
before I did something stupid like
Listen to me
confront him
carefully
or break down.
Nadia's
or give
voice
him any
shifted into the
indication that I
tone she
know.
used when she was investigating
Listen to
a
me
story.
carefully.
When she found
Nadia's
a thread that would
voice
unravel
shifted into the
everything.
tone she used
You
when she
go
was
home.
investigating a story.
You act completely
When she
normal.
found a thread that
Tomorrow,
would unravel everything.
You call in sick to
You
work
go home
and meet me at
You
my
act
apartment.
completely normal.
We're gonna need a team.
Tomorrow,
A real
you
team.
call in sick to work.
Forensic accountants.
And meet me at my apartment.
Divorce
We're gonna
attorneys
need
who
a team.
specialize in high
A
net
real
worth
team.
cases.
Forensic
Private
accountants.
investigators.
Divorce
If he's been
attorneys who
planning this for
specialize
months,
in high net
he's
worth
been careful.
cases. We
Private
need to be more
investigators.
careful.
If
Nadia,
he's been planning this
I don't
for
even know
months,
where to start.
He's been careful.
I don't know how to
We
fight
need to be
someone
more
who's been
careful.
strategizing.
Nadia,
while I've been planning
I don't even know where to
anniversary dinners.
start. I don't
You
know how to
start by
fight
understanding
someone
that
who's
he
been
made one
strategizing
critical
while I've been
mistake.
planning anniversary
What's that?
dinners.
He
You
underestimated
start by
you.
understanding that he made
thought you
one
were too
critical
focused
mistake
on your nonprofit
What's
work.
that?
To
He
notice him
underestimated you.
dismantling your
He
life.
thought you were too
He thought
focused
you were
on your
too
nonprofit
trusting to
work.
question him.
To notice
in
him
love to
dismantling your life.
He's wrong.
He thought you
And
were
by the
too
time he
trusting to
realizes
question
how
him.
wrong he is,
Too in love to
it'll be
suspect.
too late. He's wrong.
Adriana
and by the
closed her
time
eyes
he
and
realizes
felt
how
something
wrong
settle
he
into
is,
place.
it'll be
A
too
coldness.
late.
Adriana closed her
I can
eyes
do
and
this.
felt something settle into
I
place.
know you can.
A coldness.
You're Eleanor Hartford's
clarity.
granddaughter.
I can do
You think
this.
she built a real estate
I know
empire
you can.
by being nice?
You're Eleanor
You think she
Hartford's
survived your
granddaughter.
grandfather
You think
by
she
being
built a
trusting?
real estate empire
You come from
by
a line
being
of
nice?
women
You
who
think
know
she
how to
survived
fight.
your grandfather
It's
by
time
being
to remember
trusting?
that. You come
They
from a
talk
line of
for
women
another 20 minutes.
who know how to fight.
Nadia giving instructions.
It's time to remember that.
Adriana taking
They
mental
talked
notes.
for another 20 minutes.
By the time they hung up,
Nadia giving instructions.
Adriana had a plan for
Adriana
the next
taking
72
mental
hours.
notes. Small
By
steps.
the time they hung up,
Careful moves.
Adriana had a plan
Nothing
for
that
the
would
next
alert
72
Damien.
hours. That anything
Small
had
steps.
changed.
Careful
She
moves.
drove home to the Tribeca
Nothing that would alert
penthouse they
Damien.
shared. That anything
The
had
apartment
changed.
Damien had bought before
She
they married.
drove home
But
to
that
the
she
Tribeca
turned into
penthouse
something
they
that
shared.
felt like a home.
The apartment Damien
Or what
had
she
bought
thought was
before
a
they
home.
married.
Now
But
it
that
just
she
felt like a
turned into
very
something that
expensive
felt like a
stage set
home.
for a performance.
Or what she thought
Neither
was
of them
a
had
home.
realized they
Now
were
it just
giving.
felt like a very
She
expensive
parked in their
stage
private
set for a
garage
performance.
space.
Neither of
Took
them
the
had
elevator to the
realized they were
15th
giving,
floor.
and
She
let
parked
herself
in the
into the
private
apartment
garage
with the keys
space.
that suddenly
Took
felt
the
like they
elevator to the
belonged to
15th
someone
floor.
else's life, and let herself
The
into the
lights were
apartment with
off.
the keys
Damien
that
wasn't
suddenly
home
felt like
yet.
they belonged to
Probably
someone
still at the
else's
office.
life. Or
The
maybe
lights
he'd
were
gone
off.
to Vivian's penthouse.
Damien
after
wasn't
his
home
call.
yet.
3
Probably
nights a
still at
week,
the office.
he'd said. Or maybe
How
he'd
had
gone
she
to
not
Vivian's
noticed?
penthouse after
How
his
had
call.
she missed the signs
3
of
nights
him
a
living
week,
a double
he'd
life?
said.
Except
How had
she
she
hadn't
not missed
noticed.
them?
How had she chosen to interpret living a double life? The late nights she hadn't missed them were about work. She just chose the new cologne she thought was a midlife thing. The late nights she way stopped initiating intimacy. The new cologne she thought was a midlife tired. The way he stopped initiating intimacy
distress
and seemed relieved when
all
she was
been
too
there.
tired. She just
The
hadn't
emotional
wanted to see
distance
it.
she'd attributed to
Adriana
stress.
walked through the apartment. It had all
Seeing
been
it with
there.
new eyes.
She just
The
hadn't wanted to
living
see
room
it.
with its floor to
Adriana
ceiling
walked through the
windows
apartment, overlooking
seeing
the
it with
Hudson
new
River.
eyes.
The kitchen
The
where
living
she
room with its
countless
floor to
dinners
ceiling
for a man
windows
who was
overlooking
planning to
the
leave
Hudson
her.
River.
The bedroom
The kitchen
where
where
they
she
made love
cooked
and made
countless
promises
dinners for a man
and
who
made
was planning
believe
to
they were
leave her.
building something that
The
would last.
bedroom where they'd made love
She went to
and
the
made
guest room,
promises.
the one they
And
used
made
as an
believe they
office,
were building something
and
that would
opened
last.
Damien's laptop.
She went to the guest
He
room,
kept it here
the one they
sometimes
used
when he
as an
worked from
office.
home. And
She knew his
opened Damien's
password.
laptop.
It had been her
He
birthday
kept
when
it
they
here
first
sometimes
married,
when he worked
and he'd
from home.
never changed it.
She knew his
She
password.
typed in the numbers.
It had been her birthday
The
when they
screen
first
unlocked,
married, and he'd never changed it. She typed in the numbers. The screen unlocked. Her hands were steady as she opened his email, as she navigated to his browser history, as she found exactly what she was looking for. Months of correspondence with Vivian, not hidden particularly well, because why would they be? He thought she'd never look, thought she'd never suspect. The emails were a masterclass in betrayal, detailed discussions of their future together, plans for the villa in Cap Ferrat, they by once the divorce was finalized, discussion of which properties Damien planned to claim from Adriana's inheritance. One exchange made her stop breathing. Vivian, your wife seems sweet. Almost feel bad about this. Almost. Damien, don't. She had her purpose. Stabilize my image when I was building the company. But you're who I'm supposed to be with. This is just correcting a mistake I made 8 years ago. A mistake. 8 years of marriage. 8 years of partnership and support and believing in a future together. Reduced to a mistake he was correcting. Adriana screenshotted everything. Created a folder in her cloud storage that Damien didn't know existed. Uploaded the evidence systematically. Every email, every text she could access. Every browser history showing visits to divorce attorney websites and offshore banking portals. She found his consultation agreement with Michael Chun, the most ruthless divorce attorney in Manhattan. The man who'd gotten 3 different tech billionaires through divorces where their wives walked away with a fraction of what they should have received. Chin specialized in asset protection, in finding legal gray areas, in making community property disappear into structures wives couldn't touch. The agreement was dated 4 months ago. For months, while she'd been planning their anniversary trip to Barcelona, while she'd been thinking about whether they should finally start trying for children, while she'd been living in a marriage, he'd been planning its demolition. Adriana heard the front door open, heard Damien's keys at the bowl in the entryway, heard his footsteps on the hardwood floor. She closed a laptop, erased her browser history, and stepped out of the office with a smile that felt like it belonged to a stranger. Hey! Damien looked surprised to see her. Guilty? Or was she imagining that now that she knew what guilt looked like on him? I thought you were working late. Finished early. Figured I'd surprise you at the office. But you weren't there. Something flickered across his face. Calculation. Concern. I had a dinner meeting. Client from Singapore. Should have texted you. The lie came so easily. So smoothly. How many lies had he told her over the last 4 months? Over the last 8 years? No problem. I'm exhausted anyway. She moved past him toward the bedroom. Go to shower and crash. He caught her arm gently, pulled her back, kissed her forehead with the mechanical affection of someone going through motions. Happy anniversary. I'm sorry I've been distracted. The merger has been consuming everything. I know. It's okay. She smiled up at him, and the smile felt like a weapon. We have time. We're not going anywhere. If he heard the edge in those words, he didn't show it. Just smiled back and let her go. And Adriana walked to the bathroom feeling like she just delivered a line in a play she hadn't known she was performing. She showered, put on pajamas, climbed into bed beside a man who'd been sharing someone else's bed 3 nights a week. When he reached for her, she let him pull her close, let him kiss her neck, let him initiate intimacy for the first time in weeks. And while he moved above her, while he whispered her name like it meant something, Adriana Cole stared at the ceiling and calculated her next move. Because this wasn't about love anymore. This wasn't about saving a marriage or winning him back or any of the things people did when relationships fractured. This was about survival. This was about protecting everything she had from a man who'd been planning to take it while she slept beside him. This was about becoming the kind of woman her grandmother had been. The kind who understood that sometimes the greatest act of love was learning when to stop being loving. When Damien fell asleep, she lay awake in the darkness and thought about offshore accounts and hidden assets and how a man could hold you close while planning your destruction. She thought about Vivian Laurent and whether the other woman knew she was dating someone who betrayed his wife with the same smooth competence he brought to every negotiation. But mostly, she thought about her grandmother. Eleanor Hartford had died 2 years ago, but her voice was clear in Adriana's head. That voice that told stories about surviving men who underestimated her, about building wealth they didn't know existed, about understanding that power was something you took, not something anyone gave you willingly. At 3 a.m, Adriana got up carefully, not waking Damien, and went back to the office. She spent the next 2 hours researching divorce attorneys, asset protection specialists, private investigators who worked with high net worth individuals. She made a list of names, created a separate email account Damien would never find, started reaching out to people who could help her build a case against a man who thought he'd already won. By the time dawn broke over the Hudson River, Adriana had assembled the beginnings of a team. She had appointments scheduled. She had documents downloaded and secured. She had a plan. And she had something else. Something cold and sharp and absolutely ruthless that she hadn't known she was capable of until she needed it. By 6 a.m, she was back in bed, pretending to sleep when Damien's alarm went off. She watched him through half-closed eyes as he got ready for work. Watched him check his phone and smile at something. A text from Vivian. Probably a good morning message from the woman who thought she was his future. "I'll be late tonight," Damien said, kissing Adriana's forehead as he headed out. "Board meeting. Probably won't be home until 11. Okay, I'll leave dinner in the fridge." He left, and Adriana lay in bed for another 10 minutes, listening to the silence. Then she got up, got dressed, and called her assistant at the nonprofit. "Jennifer, I need you to clear my schedule for the next 3 days. Personal emergency. Family stuff. I'll explain when I'm back." Then she drove to Nadia's apartment in Brooklyn, where her best friend was already awake with coffee and a legal pad covered in notes. "Okay," Nadia said as Adriana walked in. "Let's burn his world down." But Adriana shook her head. "No, we're not burning anything down. We're building something he can't see. We're protecting what's mine. And by the time he realizes what's happening, it'll already be done. That's terrifying. I love it. Tell me everything you found." They spent the next 8 hours going through every document Adriana had downloaded, every email she'd screenshotted, every piece of evidence showing Damien's systematic planning. Nadia, with her investigative journalist training, started building a timeline, started connecting dots, started seeing patterns Adriana had missed. "This isn't just an affair," Nadia said around 2 in the afternoon, surrounded by printouts and highlighted sections. "This is financial fraud. Look at these emails about the offshore accounts. He's been moving marital assets into structures you can't touch. That's illegal. That's hiding assets during a marriage with the intent to defraud a spouse. Can we prove that? We can if we get the right forensic accountant. Someone who specializes in finding hidden money. Someone who knows how to trace funds through shell companies and international transfers." Nadia looked up from the documents. "I know someone. She's helped me on investigations before. She's expensive, but she's worth it. Money is an issue. I have my inheritance from my grandmother. The $5 million? Adriana hesitated, then decided that if she couldn't trust Nadia, she couldn't trust anyone. "Actually, there's more. A lot more. My grandmother left instructions with her attorney that if my marriage showed signs of trouble, he was supposed to reveal additional trusts, holdings she never put through public probate. I need to go to Boston, talk to Lawrence Burke, figure out exactly what I'm working with." Nadia's eyes widened. "Your grandmother was a strategic genius. She survived my grandfather, who apparently makes Damien look like an amateur in the manipulation department. She knew what she was doing when she structured her estate. She was protecting me from something she saw coming before I did. When do we go to Boston? You think I'm letting you handle this alone? I'm coming. We'll take the train tomorrow morning. Meet with Lawrence. Figure out what resources you actually have. Then we come back and start building the team you need. That night, Adriana went home and cooked dinner. When Damien came home at 11, true to his word for once, she had food waiting. They ate together, talked about nothing important. And when he mentioned the merger was getting close to finalization, Adriana just nodded and asked intelligent questions and played the supportive wife, so convincingly she almost forgot she was acting. After dinner, they watched television, some documentary about climate change that neither of them was really paying attention to. Damien's phone buzzed multiple times. He glanced at it, but didn't pick it up while Adriana was in the room. Learning to be more careful, probably at midnight, they went to bed. Damien fell asleep quickly, the sleep of someone whose conscience wasn't bothering him. Adriana lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about trusts and offshore accounts, and whether her grandmother had ever laid awake like this, planning her own survival while the man beside her slept peacefully. The next morning, she told Damien she was going to Boston for the day. Foundation business. A potential donor she needed to meet. Want company? He offered, and she could see him calculating whether he should be concerned about her traveling alone. No, it's boring stuff. Grant proposals and financial reviews. You'd hate it. He looked relieved. Okay, safe travels. Text me when you get there? Of course. She kissed him goodbye and wondered if he tasted the lie on her lips the way she tasted his every time he said he loved her. The train to Boston took 3.5 hours. Nadia brought coffee and pastries and a folder of research she'd already started on Michael Chun. He's good, Nadia said, flipping through her notes. Won some pretty ugly cases. But he's also been sanctioned twice by the Bar Association for aggressive tactics that crossed ethical lines. If we can prove Damien's hiding assets, Chen's going to have a hard time defending it. Lawrence Burke's office was in a historic brownstone in Beacon Hill. The waiting room looked like something from another century. Dark wood paneling, oil paintings of serious-looking men, leather furniture that probably cost more than most people's cars. Lawrence himself was in his 70s, with white hair and sharp eyes that had watched decades of legal battles. He greeted Adriana with genuine warmth. Your grandmother spoke of you often. She was very proud, though I suspect she'd be heartbroken to know why you're here. You know why I'm here? I've been monitoring the situation, as Eleanor instructed. When your husband retained Michael Chin 4 months ago, I knew it was time to reach out. I've been waiting for you to call. They sat in his office, Nadia excusing herself to give him privacy, and Lawrence pulled out a folder that looked like it had been prepared years ago. Your grandmother was a remarkable woman, brilliant at making money, and even better at protecting it from men who thought they were entitled to control it. He opened the folder. The will that went through probate after her death was real. The $5 million you inherited is yours, completely protected by your prenuptial agreement. But it was also a decoy. A decoy? Eleanor knew that if you married someone ambitious, that person would eventually search court records, look for assets, calculate what he might claim in a divorce. So she gave him something to find. $5 million is significant enough to be real, but small enough not to trigger deeper investigation. He pulled out more documents. This is what Eleanor actually left you. Adriana's hands shook as she read. Trusts in multiple states. Real estate holdings in Boston, Miami, and London. A venture capital fund that had been quietly generating returns for 30 years. Shares in privately held companies whose valuations had grown exponentially. $47 million. Lawrence said quietly, give or take, depending on current valuations. All of it structured to be completely protected from marital claims. Different trustees, different jurisdictions, all established before your marriage. Your husband can't touch a penny. $47 million. Adriana couldn't process the number. I had no idea. That was the point. Eleanor called these her insurance policies. She said every woman should have money her husband doesn't know about, hidden where he can't find it, structured so he can't claim it even if he tries. Lawrence smiled sadly. She learned that lesson the hard way with your grandfather. She made sure you wouldn't have to. He pulled out another document, a letter in Eleanor's handwriting. Adriana's eyes filled with tears as she read her grandmother's words written from beyond the grave. Instructions, wisdom, a playbook for exactly the situation. The letter ended with, "You're stronger than you know, but you've always been too kind. It's time to be kind to yourself instead. There's one more thing." Lawrence handed her a small key, safe deposit box at her bank. The contents are strategic. She said you'd understand what to do with them when the time came. Adriana and Nadia went to the bank that afternoon. The safe deposit box contained files dating back 40 years. Eleanor's own divorce from Adriana's grandfather, evidence he'd tried to hide assets, testimony from private investigators, a detailed accounting of how she'd outmaneuvered him completely. But there was also another folder, this one labeled Patterns. Inside were documents about Damien Cole, newspaper clippings from when he'd been building his company, social media screenshots, and private investigator reports showing his reconnection with Vivian Laurent 6 years ago. She was watching him, Adriana whispered. She knew. The reports documented everything. Damien's meetings with Vivian at international conferences, the gradual escalation from professional contact to something more. Eleanor had known about the affair before it even fully started. She'd seen the pattern, recognized it from her own marriage, and she prepared. The final page was a note. He follows his father's script. Men like this don't change. They just find new stages for the same performance. Protect yourself, my darling. You deserve better than crumbs from someone else's table. On the train back to New York, Adriana was quiet, processing everything. $47 million. A complete playbook. Evidence that her grandmother had been protecting her for years without her knowing. What are you thinking? Nadia asked finally. I'm thinking my grandmother gave me everything I need to win this. And I'm thinking Damien Cole has no idea what's about to hit him. So what's next? Next, we build a team. We find the best divorce attorney, who isn't Michael Chun. We hire that forensic accountant you mentioned. We start documenting everything Damien does from this point forward. And we wait. Wait for what? For him to make a mistake. He's confident right now. Thinks he's in control. Confident people get sloppy. And when he does, we'll be ready. That night, Adriana came home to find Damien already there, which was unusual. He was cooking dinner. Actually cooking, not ordering in. Pasta carbonara, which he knew was her favorite. What's this? She asked, genuinely surprised. I've been a terrible husband lately. Distracted. Absent. I wanted to do something nice. He pulled her close, kissed her properly for the first time in weeks. How was Boston? Productive. The donor might come through with a significant grant. That's great. Your work is important. I don't tell you that enough. They ate dinner together. Damien was attentive, asked questions about her day, seemed genuinely interested. If Adriana hadn't known better, she would have thought he was trying to reconnect, trying to save their marriage. But she did know better. She knew this was part of the strategy. Act normal. Show marital harmony. Build a case that he tried to make things work before filing for divorce. Michael Chin had probably advised this exact approach. So she played along, laughed at his jokes, let him think his performance was working. Let him believe she had no idea what was really happening. After dinner, they made love. And this time, Adriana wasn't calculating. This time, she let herself feel the full weight of betrayal. Let herself mourn the marriage that had been real for her even if it hadn't been for him. Let herself grieve for the man she thought she'd married. When it was over and Damien fell asleep, Adriana lay awake and felt something fundamental shift inside her. The last part of her that had hoped this was all a misunderstanding, that there was some explanation that would make everything okay, finally died. In its place rose something colder, sharper, more ruthless than she'd known she was capable of being. She got up, went to the office, and sent emails to the divorce attorney Nadia had recommended, to the forensic accountant, to a private investigator who specialized in infidelity cases. She scheduled appointments. She moved pieces into position. And then she did something that would have shocked a woman she'd been a week ago. She accessed Damien's laptop again. But this time, instead of just reading his emails, she installed monitoring software, the kind that would track every keystroke, every deleted file, every browser history, the kind that was probably illegal but absolutely necessary. Because if he was going to fight dirty, so was she. If he was going to use every advantage, every strategy, every manipulation in his arsenal, then she would too. Except she would do it better. Because she had something he didn't. She had a grandmother who taught her, across time and death, exactly how to survive a man like him. Comment below. What would you do if you discovered your partner had been planning to leave you for months? Would you confront him immediately, or would you build your case quietly like Adriana? I genuinely want to know. By morning, Adriana had transformed completely. The trusting wife was gone. In her place stood someone her grandmother would have recognized. Someone who understood that love without respect was just another word for exploitation. Someone who knew that sometimes the greatest act of self-love was learning when to stop being forgiving. She made Damien breakfast, kissed him goodbye, watched him leave for work, and then she went to war. If you've invested in Adriana's story, hit that like button right now. Part 2 drops tomorrow, same time, right here on Stories with Mr. Parker. You need to see what happens when Damien's world crashes down. The charity gala confrontation, the federal investigation, the pregnancy that changes everything, and the choice Adriana makes that no one sees coming. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss it. Tomorrow, same channel. Part 2 of a woman who refused to lose. I'll see you then.